Now, a few weeks ago I did send off some Nintendo cardboard to Stu at TootyUK, the wonderful Iron Man himself, because I don't have any room for Nintendo cardboard, and to be honest with you, it's not something that's buried deep in this Sony pony heart. Now, I didn't ask for anything in return, but for some reason this arrived the other day, a box full of who knows what, and I'm going to share the opening of the box with you right after these. Now, as I've said, I don't know what's in this box. I didn't even know this box was coming until it was almost here, and all I've done at the moment is open it up, haven't looked inside it, and we're going to check now what is inside this box from the wonderful TootyUK. Now, the first thing to come out of the box is the King of Kong, a fistful of quarters. Obviously a sort of mockumentary by the looks of things, with good old, what was his name, Billy Mitchell, yeah, not the one off of EastEnders if you're from the UK, and Steve Weeb, who obviously wanted to beat him at that. Now, that's quite an interesting thing, but I'll sit that there for the moment. Now, Stu did ask me what I was collecting for at the moment, and as I say to everyone, I'm not really collecting for anything. I'm not a collector, I'm a gamer with a collection, but I have just recently picked up an NES and I don't have a lot of titles. In fact, I've only got one. I've got Double Dragon, so he has sent some NES titles over, and the first one that I pulled out of the box was Lunar Pool. Now, I don't know Lunar Pool. Do you know Lunar Pool? Let me know down in the comments, because I mean, I like pool games. Even back on the 8-bit microcomputer days, I used to play pool games and snooker games, but this one here, Lunar Pool, sit that in the pile over there and move on to the next. And the next is another sports title, and it's 4 Players Tennis. Again, I don't have this in the collection obviously because I don't have a lot of NES games, but 4 Players Tennis, anyone down in the comments, let me know if this stands up to some of the great 8-bit tennis games on the Master System, ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64 and Amstrad CPC. Let me know down in the comments because I don't know. Next up is a Konami game. It's Roller Games. It's a game I don't know anything about because, quite frankly, I don't know anything about the NES. It's not a system that I had back in the day. I've only just bought my second one recently. That'll be staying in the collection now, but Roller Games, Konami game, you've got that lovely silver cart art or background or theme colour, and Roller Games is into the collection. Quite happy about that. Looks like one that will definitely be playing soon. Now, not just the NES, there was some older PC games because I'm an older PC fan. And the first one that I pulled out of the box now isn't complete, it's just a disc only, but it's Leisure Suit Larry 5, and let me tell you, Leisure Suit Larry is just one of those franchises that I grew up with, absolutely adored, and I still have some out there for the PlayStation 2 and the like. And another PC game from back in the day, unboxed, but it's got the disc and that's what you play. And we have X-Wing vs TIE Fighter, The Academy. Now, I am a big Star Wars fan, but I don't seem to get on with Star Wars video games. I don't know what it is, but I've got that there now, and I'll move on to the next game, which is another older PC game. And here we have UFO Enemy Unknown. It's a tactics game, it's a strategy game. I love that style of game. I have never played UFO Enemy Unknown before. I will get round to playing it at some point, but at the moment I haven't played that one. I'm looking forward to it. Now, the next thing that I pulled out of the box was an expansion pack, and it's an expansion pack for Diablo. The only authorised expansion pack apparently was published by the wonderful Sierra, as you say down there, and Sierra did manage to get a lot of my money back in the 90s anyway. But that's Hellfire, an expansion for Diablo. I'll get round to playing Diablo as well, and I'm sure there's a lot of you out there would love for me to play Diablo. Now, next up is a Bullfrog game, and Bullfrog back in the day, even with Peter Molyneux behind them, they used to be a decent company, but these things happen. But this game here, really excited to have it in a physical form in the collection. I have it on my PC through GOG, goodoldgames.com, but it's Dungeon Keeper. Now, Dungeon Keeper is a fantastic game. It's a game, I'm sure most of you have played it or at least seen it before, where you command your goblins and your other creatures, sorcerers and whatnot, and take them out into battle and protect your dungeon while trying to take over the land. Fantastic game, one you must play. And the next thing I pulled out of the box, another PC game again. Don't worry, there will be other systems other than PC, but the next thing I pulled out was Rebel Assault 2 for the PC, and again it's a Star Wars game. I should love it, but I never get round to loving the Star Wars games. I'll probably get back into them now, but I don't know, it's just something, they're not canon, I can't get on with them, it's as simple as that. And following suit, the very next thing out of the box was another Star Wars game. It's Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, and it's again another game that I didn't play back in the day just purely because I didn't like it ruining the Star Wars experience, or at least the Star Wars experience that was in my head. Now the next thing that came out of the box was another Sierra published game, and that is the wonderful King's Quest 6. Now I do love the King's Quest games. They're not my favourite of the Sierra point and click games. I would say maybe Police Quest for that, but I did thoroughly enjoy the King's Quest games. And out of the box also came King's Quest 7, another Sierra Originals. And you just can't beat a bit of King's Quest, it's simple as that. Now that's the earlier sort of PC stuff out of the way, and we're moving back to cartridges and back to Nintendo, because he has sent along a couple of Super Nintendo games, a couple of SNES games, and the first one, Lawnmower Man. Now this is a game that I haven't played Lawnmower Man, but it'll sit lovely in my collection quite simply because it's a licensed game. It's probably a bad game, which means that it'll also sit lovely in my collection as well, but at the moment there we have Lawnmower Man sitting there in the collection. And next and the last of the Super Nintendo games, Pack Attack. Now everybody loves a bit of Pac-Man. I've never played Pack Attack. I don't know what style of game it is. I doubt it's like a traditional maze Pac-Man game, but I've got it here now. I'll be able to test it out and see exactly what Pack Attack is on the SNES. Now that was all of the Super Nintendo, but it wasn't the end of the cartridge games that came in this wonderful box. There were a handful of N64 games as well. And the first one I pulled out was WrestleMania 2000. Now, I'll be frankly honest with you, 2000 is probably a bit late for me in WrestleMania or any sort of wrestling. I sort of weaned myself off it by 1996 at the latest. But you can't beat a bit of the wrestling games, and I've never really played one on the N64 before, so I'll give it a try now. The next thing I pulled out of the box in another N64 game, we have F1 Pole Position 64, and I do like a good racing game, and I know, or at least I've been made aware, that the N64 was one of those systems that was absolutely littered with racing games, some good, some bad, but we'll see what this one's like. Now the last N64 game that I pulled out of the box is Chopper Attack. Now Chopper Attack is a game that I don't know anything about. I do like Jungle Strike, I did like Desert Strike. I don't know if this is going to be like this or a different style of shooter altogether. Is it GT Interactive? I can just about make down there in the corner. So it should be a decent quality game, or I'm hoping so anyway. But Chopper Attack come out of this wonderful box and it's in the collection now, and I'm quite looking forward to playing that one. Now it wasn't all Nintendo and PC, there was also some Sony in there. We've got to show the Sony some love, but the first thing that got pulled out of the box was a PSP UMD, in other words a movie, and we have Resident Evil. Now I like the Resident Evil movie, I don't care what people say about it, it really got the tone of the original game. It just seemed quite perfect to me as a way to tell that story in an hour and a half on a cinema screen, and anyone who disagrees, well, that's fine, that's your opinion, you're allowed to have a wrong opinion. But moving on, there was some games in there as well, not just the UMD videos. We had Invisimals. Now this is one of those Creatures to Life games, I believe. You require the PSP camera, something that I still have to pick up as a PSP camera. But Invisimals, I doubt I'll play much of that, but I'll probably give it a go when I get a camera, something to test the camera on. And the next PSP game was Ben 10 Protector of Earth. I do like a licensed game. I like a licensed game from a license I enjoy, and I really did enjoy Ben 10, mainly because of all the other kids shows that were on while my son and daughter were growing up. This particular franchise had the most to offer. It did for me anyway. Decent story. Hope the games are good, but I'll be able to check out this one. I'm sure I've got others in the PlayStation 2, but I'll get to check that out in the PSP. And the next PSP out of the game was Shaun White's Snowboarding. Now I do like the X games from the 2000s, the early 2000s and on to almost the 2010. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 is probably my favourite of them all, but Shaun White's Snowboarding was another one that I played on the PlayStation 2. Looking forward to seeing how it plays on the PSP, and does it hold up? Who knows, we'll give it a try. And last of the PSP games, we have Archer McLean's Mercury. Now this will be a puzzle game. It's one that I haven't played before, but anyone who knows classic gaming knows Archer McLean and knows the quality of the game that it's going to be, or I kind of hope so now that I'm starting to sing its praises without actually having played it. It is going to be a puzzle game. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I'm going to certainly sit down with my PSP and play some Mercury for some of that liquid mayhem, I believe it said in the back. So Mercury, an Archer McLean game, who's no longer with us sadly, but that's in the collection now. I'm quite happy about that because everybody needs to show a bit of love to the PSP, and I'll just sit them out the way ready for the next lot, which just happens to be slightly more modern PC games. And there's a few here that I've never played before because let's face it, there's so many games out there, and unless you're Metal Jesus Rocks or somebody like that, you're never going to have the time to play every game that comes your way. But here for the PC we have Auto Assault, The End of the Road as you know it, and yes, it's obviously going to be some sort of car combat game, bit like Carmageddon and the likes of that I would imagine. It looks like we've got some sort of custom character creator there, which is always nice, something to mess about with for about 5 hours before you actually play a game. So that's Auto Assault, sit that there with the rest of the PC games and move on to the next, which is another game that I don't know anything about, never played before, and that is The Secret World. Now the box art is fantastic. It's got a sort of, I don't know, I would have to say a Wolfenstein-y sort of feel to it. I don't think the game's a first person shooter, quite sure it's not actually, but it's got that look to it, you know, you kind of pseudo-Nazi, pseudo-Templar Knight, just pseudo-secret hidden organisation or alternate future, and I love that kind of story. So I'll get round to cracking this open, having a look at it in the PC, see if I like it. I mean, some of the screenshots at the back are quite interesting, but we won't know until we play it because screenshots can lie. And next up in the same vein, another game that I don't know anything about, haven't played before, is the Saga of Horizon. As you can see from the side, it's a massively multiplayer online game, an MMO if you want, and it's not the type of game that I would normally play, but back in the day they were slightly better, in my opinion anyway. The MMOs were slightly better. I might just take this out and see if there's still servers or maybe even fan servers. This game is sealed, so if there was any one-time use codes in it, it'll be in there and I might be able to give it a crack. If not, it's just a nice piece for the collection. And next out of the box, and it's still a PC game, but this is from a classic arcade game because it's a reimagining of Dragon's Lair, and we have Dragon's Lair 3D Return to the Lair. Now I remember playing Dragon's Lair back in the day when it first came out, and just look at that artwork. That artwork's fantastic. It takes me back, and yes, it's not a real game, Dragon's Lair. It was click this direction quite quickly. It was quick time events before quick time events were a thing, but I absolutely loved it. It enthralled me. It was like playing a cartoon. That's how you felt back in the day when you were playing it, especially when you were in your younger teens at least, or even younger than that some people. But Dragon's Lair 3D, I haven't played this, I'm looking forward to this. I think I'm going to get some nostalgic tingles when I play it. I'm certainly getting some nostalgic tingles just by looking at the box art at the back there. So Dragon's Lair 3D, that was an exciting one to pull out of the box for me. And led on to a PC game that's fairly recent, but it's fairly retro as well because it's Super Meat Boy on the PC, and I've never played this one. It's one of those modern retro games that are just way too hard and I don't have the reflexes for them anymore. So only reason I haven't picked it up, but now I've got it here sitting for the PC. I'm going to have to play this now. I'm going to have to play Super Meat Boy, and I'm sure there's a few people out there who'll be happy that I'm going to finally play Super Meat Boy. And I'm talking people probably like Hyper Trigger X and Rollercore. They're going to be over the moon that I've got a really hard game to play for a change, and I'm not just going to be sitting playing an RPG or a JRPG all night. But talking about RPGs, one of the classic BioWare RPGs also pulled out of the box. We have this lovely Mass Effect trilogy box here, and I've never played 1, 2 and 3 on the Mass Effect games. I have played Andromeda, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I will get round to playing them, I just haven't yet. Think I may stick to the PC version rather than the PlayStation version, because you can't get the first one, you can't get Mass Effect 1 on the PlayStation, well, not without buying this sort of trilogy, special trilogy. So I think I'll go with this. Yeah, I think I'll definitely play Mass Effect trilogy on the PC. It's probably the best place for me to play it anyway. And staying with BioWare, the next thing that came out of the box absolutely blew me away. We have this wonderful Jade Empire Special Edition Steelbook, and Jade Empire's another game that I haven't gotten round to play yet. This one is complete and dare I say it, minty fresh. That's just stunning, absolutely stunning. Jade Empire Special Edition, this lovely Steelbook edition. It's fantastic. Absolutely delighted to pull that out. And you know what? I didn't ask Tooty to send anything along. I didn't want anything for the stuff I sent him. But if you'd have just sent that and that alone, that would have made up for it all anyway. And the last thing that I pulled out of a box that I didn't ask for, wasn't expecting, he didn't really need to send me, was an item that for me personally puts all the rest of the items to absolute shame, because what was inside the box was the complete box set, Final Fantasy complete box set. I am even stumbling over my words as I'm looking at this just now, and it's a lovely import. And as you can see up there, you've got Final Fantasy 7 Dirge of Cerberus, and then you've got Final Fantasy 10, 10-2, 12, 13 and 13-2, all in this one stunning Final Fantasy complete box set, imported from overseas, probably Japan I would imagine. But there we go, fantastic, and that is absolutely stunning. And yes, I loved every piece that came out of this box. A lot of stuff that I had nostalgia for, a lot of stuff that I should have played already, like Super Meat Boy, and a lot of it NES and SNES and even Nintendo 64 games I get to try out for the very first time. So all I've got left to say is thank you very much again to Stu over at TootyUK, and if you don't watch him, there'll be a link in the description, but I'm sure if you're watching me, you definitely watch Tooty. Thank you for sending over this wonderful box of goodies, things for me to explore. If you've enjoyed this video, then why don't you drop down and give me a little like, helps grow the channel, and of course leave a comment, because the interaction between you and me is what makes YouTube special. It does for me anyway, and not only that, it gives you the opportunity to talk about some of these games, especially if they're near and dear to your heart. Thank you again for watching as always, and until next time, cheerio.